technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Ja.
And I am Priscilla Belloh. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a noonday broadcast, where we delve into transformative dialogues about social justice and the voices leading our charge for social reforms. At a noonday, we explore the intersections of politics, culture, and tradition, with the leaders reshaping our world for the better. A new day focuses on critical dialogues around social justice with emphasis on gender justice to influence policies and contribute to societal shifts. Again, my name is Priscilla Belloh. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Today, we are going to be having two veteran journalists to discuss their journey and contributions to the Liberian media landscape. The first person we have with us is Mr. Bill Burke. Bill is the deputy program editor of Al Jazeera English, Al Jazeera Media Network. Welcome to a new day, Bill. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. It's good to be here.
Great. I'm going to do a little chit chat before we get into the crux of the matter. Tell us, where are you now, if you don't mind, or how is the weather? I know we're talking about that. What's going on at your end?
I'm in Doha, Qatar. Al Jazeera is headquartered here. I took a job with Al Jazeera in August of this year. I was a lecturer at Georgia College and State University, and I left that. And I've been here now for close to 3 months. Very hot. This place is in the desert. In fact, a friend of mine said, God didn't create this place for humans to live, because it was extremely hot, but it's starting to cool off a little bit. And when I say hot, there were many days where it was like 104, 108, 111, 112 degrees. There's a grocery store about 5 minutes from here, and I tried walking there one day during the morning hours, and I had to turn around because I thought I was going to pass out, But it's better. It's like I said before we came online, that we now have what I would call an appreciable weather. And it's my understanding that between now and I think sometime in February or March, this, what people here call lovely weather, will persist, and then we'll go back to, the, what I would call almost unlivable conditions.
Oh my God. Sounds like Arizona to me. Because sometimes we get close to 115, 116, 120, 121. It could be like, oh my God, we just got in the 2 digits. But yeah, the last few weeks, up to I think last weekend, we were still in 3 digits.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's how hot it is here.
And it's not just hot, it's extremely humid. Extremely humid, yeah. So
yeah, that is the difference. Yeah, it's not humid, it's just hot, and you get dehydrated easily. You got to keep drinking water, because you just don't know that you're losing water just because you're not sweating. It's not humid.
yeah.
Yeah. All right, but then so what's going on? You are preparing for covering the elections. At the same time, you were saying there are other things going on. We got to keep the TV on, and then covering conflict around the world and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
This network is based in the Middle East. It's a Middle Eastern network. I don't speak for Al Jazeera, but I've heard some of our bosses say Al Jazeera was founded to, um, you know, cater to what we call the global South, a
Mm.
portion of the world that is not covered the way it should be covered by the international media.
Yeah.
Right now, you do know that there's a war going on in the Middle East, and I would say on multiple fronts. And because Al Jazeera is what it is, it's a Middle Eastern network that takes up about, I would say, 75 to 80% of our coverage right now. You know,
Mm.
the voice of the Palestinians who are the focus of various bombardments we see every day from Israel. Be the voice of um, the Lebanese who are suffering from these bombardments as well. Also we focus on covering um, parts of Africa. For example, there've been devastating floods in places like Nigeria and other parts of Africa. And of course, Al Jazeera has been covering that. So Al Jazeera, for the most part, like I said, caters to the global South. You know,
Mhm.
those of us who are from the West, we know that for the most part, and I've been a part of the Western media, so I'm not sitting here to condemn the Western media because I've been a part of the Western media for years. But we do know that while we cover the global South, they are not. I mean, the global South is not our number one priority. I remember my days at CNN when I was in charge of Inside Africa, and we had a team of mostly Africans, and we made it a priority to make sure that Africa was covered. We covered the elections. I mean, we prioritized covering the elections when Sierra Leone was emerging from its civil war, the elections when Liberia was emerging from the civil war, elections in Zimbabwe, and other places around the world. The 10th anniversary of the genocide in Rwanda, 10th anniversary of democracy in South Africa, for example, all of these different places. And we thought that we had laid out a path for people who came after us to, step into. But then, and I'm not going to say much yet, but then CNN changed. CNN changed. And so again, all of the hard work we did back then, I would say had I don't want to say it was in vain, but they just pushed that aside, and CNN really changed. So it's
Yeah.
great to be in the company of people who focus on covering, the part of the world that I am from, the part of the world that means a lot to me. I mean, there isn't a single day that goes by where we're not telling stories of, from Africa, and not just the bad stories. We're telling good stories from Africa as well. Together. I mean, at the same time, while we're, trying to be the voice of the Palestinians who are being killed every day, the Lebanese who are being killed every day. So it's a lot of work, and of course, the election is coming up, and we've made that a big part of our coverage, a huge part of our coverage, because there's a saying that when Washington sneezes, can you finish that? The rest of the world catches a cold.
Mhm.
Okay, so what
Unfortunately.
happens? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying unfortunately.
Yeah, so the world is washing. So of course, it's a big part of our coverage. I'm off tomorrow, and then I'll be back there on Tuesday for the election. I was hoping to be on the election team coming to Washington, but I guess you know I'm sitting here in Doha, so
So what time is it for you at your end right now?
It's about 8 or 9 in the evening.
Oh,
And I
okay.
see my friend and brother Emmanuel has joined us. It's been
And we just
so
lost him
long
again.
since I saw him.
Yeah, I was going to come to him. Well, okay. So, people, this is our new day on Focus on Liberia. Today, we're talking about the Liberian media across time and space, part two. And we had a part one, and there were, two other veteran journalists with us today. We have Bill Burke and Emmanuel Abalo. We together we were exploring this course, Liberian media evolution and current state. Our conversation will highlight the historical context, significant challenges, and transformative moments in Liberian journalism. We will mainly focus on the roles and contributions of these key figures like Bill and Emmanuel in shaping in shaping media practices and advocating for press freedom in Liberia and the Americas, because these people did not only stop in Liberia when they crossed over. The great things that they were going to talk about those as well. In passing, Joe and Bill mentioned his time at CNN. So the discussion will provide insights into how past experiences and present realities can inform future initiatives to enhance media integrity and independence, fostering a more informed and engaged public. So, Bill, you mentioned in passing CNN, because I was going to start with how did you start journalism and what was your first role and where and when did you work at CNN? So, but if we have Emmanuel back with us, let's give him the chance to reintroduce himself. Emmanuel is no stranger. This is his second time around, but go ahead for the sake of those who were on last week.
Thank you, Priscilla, and greetings to you, Bill. My name is Emmanuel Abalo. I started my journalism career back in Liberia in 1985. I served with Bill at the ELCM Community Radio. I graduated of the Mass Communications Department, and I want to mention that Mass Communications was my minor because when I entered the university, that program wasn't available, and so I was at the Teachers College majoring in English, and it was too late to change my major. And so I continued as uh, Teachers College English language major and mass communications minor. However, during graduation, there was some problem with the Senate of the university because they thought that I was graduating from the mass communications department. There was a big argument during the meeting to clear graduates, and they, someone was able to mention that no, he is a major in Teachers College, and so that was what happened. But we've worked with the media back home, and we've made some contributions. The job is not done. And that's why we're still engaged with helping the media to develop the media as the press, the media as a vibrant institution of democracy. So I'm happy to be here.
Okay. Thank you, Emmanuel. Um, and you and Bill, both of you are also founding members of AJA, the Association of Liberian Journalists in the Americas, which I recently became vice president of. So we will also be talking about their contribution towards the, you know, organizational formation of Agile. But let me go to Bill. So, Bill, you skipped that part about how you began, and yeah, and then how you ended up at CNN, all of that. So, just tell us a little bit, give us a little background of your professional journey.
Anyway, Abalo, it's so good to see you after so many years. I know we've talked on the phone recently, but it's so good to see you after so many years. I was telling Priscilla that the two of you will have to pay me for my time because I was here and for you when I ready. Anyway,
Yes,
yeah, Abalo's right. We worked together. Say that again.
no, I was saying, yeah, he was here so early. He likes to be on time.
Abalo and I worked together at ELCM Community Radio. I started my journalism career many years ago. Maureen C., who is a very good friend of mine, and we um, used to represent, and Stephen Kennan, we used to represent Cathedral on ELBC Radio as, for the high school special program. The late Patrick Manju was there, Gabriel Kalakachu, and others, the late John Rambo. We were all together. And then later on, we wanted to do something similar for Catholic schools. So we started the Catholic School Journalism Association, and we approached the management of ELCM Community Radio. At the time, Charlotte Phelps was the station manager, and they agreed for us to start a program. We called the program Report Card. Report Card. Maureen and I used to present the program, and Frank Banya, who I believe was program manager, was the one who was assigned to ensure that we were doing the right thing. I was in the 12th grade when we started that, and I remember after we took our national exam, came in to do a report card, and as I'm leaving the studio, Charlotte Phelps turned to me and said, "Hey, do you want to work for us?" I said, "Me?" And she said, "Yes." And that's how I started at ELCM Community Radio. I started, I think October, or it may have been, yeah, I think it was October of 1984. That's how I started. And I think the following, a couple of months later, I think Abalo joined, if I'm not mistaken. Abalo, the late Annie Broderick, wow, it's, just so many late, it's sad, The late Annie Broderick, I think Annie was our news director, and after she moved to the Herald newspaper, Abalo became the news director.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, when the station was shut down, Mr. Bessa asked me once. I represented ELCM at an event at Kinderja, and Mr. Best asked if I wanted to work for him, and I told him no, I wanted to be in radio. So when the station was shut down, I was so scared to go to Mr. Best and say, "Hey, you remember that job offer?" But I did go to him. Yeah, I did go, and he hired me, and so I worked for Mr. Best until the war came to Monrovia. Okay. When I was I spent some time in Cote d'Ivoire. While there, I freelanced a little bit for West Africa magazine. Then when I came to in the US, when I was in graduate school, about to graduate from an American university, I worked at the bank. Okay, and Stephanie Stickley, who was in charge of writers at CNN, was one of my customers. So we used to talk about the media all the time, and I remember our branch had been bought, and I didn't want to move on with the branch. And I told Stephanie, and she said, "But you get a master's in journalism." I said, "Yes." And she said, "Okay, call me." And I didn't call Stephanie for a while. One day I mustered up the strength to do that, and I did. And she said, "Let's have lunch." So we had lunch, and she introduced me to, God, I forgot her name, Karen Stein, I believe her name was. She introduced me to her, and I got hired, to push tapes at CNN. I would literally grab the tapes, and we were pushing tapes. And I was in the feeds department at CNN. Get to work in the afternoon. I was responsible for recording Congress. I knew the voices and faces of almost everyone in Congress.
Mm,
because that's what I was doing. And then later on, before then, I worked at a radio station in Washington, D.C.
mm,
And then later on, I got I applied for an associate producer position in Atlanta and moved to Atlanta. And from being an associate producer, I became a writer at CNN, and then later on, at a writer at CNN International. And then later on, I became the head of the team that produced Inside Africa. I was in charge of Inside Africa for 5 years, and then I moved back to the newsroom before leaving CNN. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
okay. I think
I'm
that's
also a graduate of the University of Liberia Mass Comm Department.
yeah. Yeah. So you went to cathedral as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to cathedral to from first grade to 10th grade before I went to convent.
Wow.
And I was in
Okay.
Cathedral from the 7th to the 9th grade and then transferred to the William V. Stockman High School.
Wow.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have, okay.
We are
Let's
all
see.
cats.
Yes, we are all cats. Yes.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, 1984 I started.
Okay. That's the year I graduated.
Look at that. Yeah, until 1990 the war came after we went back. But wow. Yeah, so we're just coming from a small country where our
Yep.
there are a lot of things we have in common. We share, and then we share the media, passion for media development as well. Because I know when I got a Soblagi fellowship to go to South Africa, to go to Rose University, South Africa, it was
Mhm.
Bill that sent me. Actually, he was heading the RX. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was Alex that sent you. It wasn't Bill,
Yeah, it was. He was heading
even though I
RX.
was here.
Sent me. It was RX that sent me. Yeah. Uh, um. Yeah. Bill was country director, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then today, now we are here. You're from the Aja, and you know, I am vice president of Aja. Yay! So you
Well,
see,
congratulations.
keep
Congrats.
working.
Congrats.
I keep working in your.
Certainly. Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Keep working in the path that you're built. So I'm glad to be sitting with you and be talking about our share interest in profession. So what 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 inspired the funding of AJA, the Association of Liberian Journalists in the Americas? Um, who can just tell us the role and vision? One of you as founders. What were your primary goals for the association?
I will let my boss start that.
You're
That's my
very
news
kind, Bill.
director, so I gotta give him the respect.
You're very kind, Bill. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Priscilla. Now, Algia has a very rich history. The founding of Algia has a very rich history. So, with the coming of the conflagration in Liberia, a lot of journalists, contemporaries, fled the country. And they fled because, one, none of the factions in Liberia felt comfortable with these journalists around. I mean, we were battle hardened from years of prosecution by governments, by powerful individuals in the country. So when the belligerents came to power, they decided that these journalists, we needed to forever remove them from the scene. And that was more of a condition under which most of the journalists who had the opportunity fled the country, and the United States gave us refuge. And so we still had that passion for the profession that we had, the profession in which we practiced, the institution in which we practiced, our commitment to press freedom and all of that. and seeing what Liberia was going through, we thought that we still had a part to play. We wanted to continue to keep the international focus on Liberia. And so we were very passionate at the time, all of the journalists who found themselves here from around the country. And we decided that it will be proper, it will be best if we pursue forming an organization um, to be in the forefront of advocacy for mainly the Liberian press. We continued to be apolitical. Our interest was advocating for the Liberian press, strengthening the Liberian press, and being a voice for the media, the press being a vibrant and strengthened institution of our democracy. And so we got together and we all met. People flew from around the country here in the U.S. and we all met in Washington D.C. Some of the connections that we had also played a very important part in the formation of ALJA, namely the Carter Center, the National Endowment for Democracy. We also had some diplomats who serve in Liberia who heard of what we're doing, and they kind of were very supportive of the effort to bring all of exiled journalists together. So they all, in fact, one of the um, institutions in Washington D.C., I believe it was the National Endowment for Democracy. They gave us a space for deliberation on the day that we met. We're able to develop a constitution, leadership, and all of that. And we're all excited about ALJA. That's how ALJA started. There was so much passion, and um, I'm not going to get into what happened after that. If you want to know what happened after ALJA was formed and we started operating, I certainly will get into that, and I'll let Bill chime in now.
Yeah.
And Emmanuel is right. I remember these little things, and I think I've
Share with me.
discussed some of that with you
Yeah.
before, Priscilla. I remember one of the first meetings we held. I don't know if you remember that. I don't know if you attended that. It's been so long, Emmanuel. It was in Kenneth Best's apartment in Silver Spring, Maryland.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Silver Spring, Maryland. We had that meeting at probably about five, six, seven of us, or 10 of us. I don't recall. It's been so long. We're getting up there now, as you can see. So, yeah, we had the meeting in Mr. Best's apartment where we discussed the formation of ALJA. We have been speaking on the phone, and let's give credit to someone who deserves a lot of credit for this, Isaac Bantu.
Mm-hmm.
Isaac Bantu, my big brother Isaac Bantu. Isaac, if you're watching, I owe you a call. I owe you an apology. But yes,
I
let's give him
it's
credit.
in recent month. Yeah, twice. I think he's
So,
busy.
because we spoke on the phone for a lot before we came together, and then the first what you would call it, convention or the gathering, was held at the National Endowment for Democracy. Yeah.
Mm.
I want to believe that was when Mr. Best was elected interim chair, or was it at his apartment? I don't recall. But he was initially elected interim chair before, when we had the big gathering, we elected the first president. But, like Emmanuel said, we had the passion. We were still committed to journalism in Liberia, and we still are. you know. But back then, I'm sure there were so many of us who dreamed about going back home and transforming the landscape of journalism, of the media in Liberia.
Mm.
Um, so we wanted to stay connected. We wanted to advocate for those who are on the ground, and so that's how that was what was behind the formation of Alja. And of course, Aja stumbled, but it's great to see that Aja is back today, and to
Great.
see to see that people like you, Priscilla, are now in charge and are continuing the dream that some of us had way back then.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, yeah, thank you so much. I know with the beginning of everything there are challenges, and Emmanuel was like, if you want me to go into it, I can. Maybe not a nitty-gritty, but can you share some significant challenges and milestones during I just early days? Out of you can do that. Like, can you recount the initial steps and challenges you face when you organized the first conference of Liberian journalists that led? Yeah, something like that. And then how has Agile Vision evolved from its inception to now, if you think there has been some evolution?
Well, as Bill mentioned, it's been quite a while since the formation of Alja and Alja 2.0, which is now in operation. But the whole goal of Alja, when we got together as journalists in exile, that convention was to be um an important advocacy instrument to help the Liberian media and to also support the democratic institutions that Liberia was attempting to build at the time, just coming from hostilities. That was the premier goal. And just to quickly mention, when I say 2.0, we had some challenges. A week ago, Priscilla, I mentioned to you the problems in some Liberian organizations where ego and other things infiltrate
Yeah.
and cause problems. And Aja was one of those survivors of that situation. They were internal politicking. It was a painful chapter that we underwent at the time. It led to the breakdown of Alja. And in fact, it embarrassed some of us who were so zealous about making sure this organization was internationally respected and
Yeah.
all of that, because our friends, our supporters, the National Endowment for Democracy, they saw some of the postings that some members of Alja got into these personal wrangling and conflict, and those things reflected on the image of the organization, and they were very disappointed.
Yeah.
In fact, I'll tell you this, and it's a painful thing to mention that one of our supporters, they wondered whether giving us a facility to help us have a meeting and all of that, whether we were going to go into open combat, hand-to-hand combat, because of the dangerous rhetoric that were being posted and all of that. And these supporters, these international supporters, kind of took a back seat after that because they could not fathom the fact that as journalists, as responsible individuals,
Yeah.
uh, could not handle our business. So they took a back seat. And obviously, Alja, with the internal wrangling and conflict, was brought to its knees. The organization became dormant and nothing was happening. And for quite a few years. And I must pay, credit to Moses Sandy and others who decided that this organization would not die a perpetual death.
Yeah.
So he took on the effort, and they've been trying to keep Alja running. They've had a few iterations of leadership, and I'm very thankful that you all are doing quite well. But that also gave some of the members of Alja, some veterans, pause about associating with the organization, and they've never ever come back because they did not want to be involved in conflict and seeing the attitude of others. They simply didn't want to be a part of that, and so we can only hope that Alja will continue. We, in solidarity with Alja, we continue to support what they do.
Yeah. Yeah. I get some of that, the remnant of what you just share, how people, Bill, before you come in, I've been for the past few years trying to reach out, because on Joe, after Moses Sandy was president and Joe Mason was his vice president, when Joe Mason became president, and then he appointed me a chairperson for grievance and professional ethics and membership. So I did a lot of outreach, and I got some of like what you shared. People were like, "Yeah, no, I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to come back." I got a lot of that, so I started to try to understand what really happened. How can we talk about like what we're doing now and see what we can find healing along the way or resolve on the unresolved, and see how, even though if you're not actively involved anymore, that you can be able to provide some wisdom so that we don't repeat mistakes of the past, that affected Aja in the way it did, as we now continue with the legacy or the vision that you had. So yeah, I got some of that. Uh, um, I just got some of that expression in voice and in responses and in reluctance and to engage. So thank you for sharing that. Bill, did you have something to add, or do you see that the vision has evolved from its inception to now?
Let me say this, Priscilla. I don't associate. I'm not an active member of Alja,
Yeah,
so it's difficult for me to sit here and say we've seen an evolution of the vision.
the vision.
The best I can say is, and I believe I've mentioned this to you before.
Mhm.
If I haven't, I'll say it now that I'm glad to see that Alja still exists. I'm glad to see, like Emmanuel said, that Alja 2.0 exists,
Yeah,
and that
you
in
said
one
it.
way or another, Liberian journalists can that are coming together and continuing, to advocate for journalism back home in Liberia. Because what happened back then, I was one of the first persons to step aside. I must be frank. I was one of the first persons. I remember getting in an argument with someone on the phone, and after the shouting match, I said to myself, "I'm done."
Yeah.
I said, "I'm done." Um, and years later, when I saw Alja coming back, I've been impressed by what I've seen so far. And I know in every organization there are issues, there are problems. We're not actively involved, so we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. But I'm sure there may be some issues or problems. But
Mm,
I think on the surface, uh, Alja has existed now. Alja 2.0 has existed now for many years and continues to exist. And so I must commend Sandy and others, others who came after him and other members of their organization that work hard to keep Alja going, that work hard to bring more people to their organization. You
mm,
got in touch with me a couple of years ago about joining Alja. And that's when I
mhm,
said to you, "Oh, but I'm familiar with Alja. We founded Alja."
yeah.
And years. Why I haven't come back has nothing to do with what happened so many years ago. It's just the fact that over the last couple of years, I've been bouncing, around the world. Okay, so that's one of the reasons that I haven't come back. But it's good to see what Aja is doing. It's good to see that the organization um, inspires young people. You have young journalists coming, or you have journalists coming from Liberia almost every year for your convention. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something good. And I hope that they come and they learn from other experience. I mean, from veteran, Liberian journalists. I hope they're learning. At the end of the day, I follow the advocacy that Aja gets involved in. I follow statements, other issues, et cetera, et cetera. And it's good to see where Aja is today. I will say, let me say this, that for all of us who were involved back then, I haven't talked to so many of us, but I hope what happened so many years ago will not keep us away from this organization that I think in the last couple of years have been doing well in representing the interests of Liberian journalists here in the U.S., while at the same time trying to improve the media landscape on the ground in Liberia.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what I was referring to when I said, have you noticed whether there has been evolution from the inception and based on your observation from afar? Because I know sometimes you tell me, you thank you, I think you are doing well. You've expressed that. So you follow some of what we share, our statements and our stance on issue. But yeah, Emmanuel, this man is so, and I know, Bill, you've been wanting to engage because I think, let go of whatever happened in the past. But you did say, yeah, after a particular incident where there was this shouting on the phone, it's like, yeah, no, I can't do this. But then you have moved past that and was open to come on board. But Emmanuel, let me just say, Bill took 1 year to fill in the application that I sent. I forgot about he one day. He said, okay, Priscilla, I finished reading what you sent me. Now I said, okay, then fill in the application because I like to do stuff by the book. They may fill in the application, then move
Okay,
to
I would be in Liberians here when we say 1 year. It was not 1 year, Oma. It took months, but it was not 1 year. When Liberian may tell you, you finish eating all the food and just small food you took from the power. You say you finish eating
the
all.
it took
It
that
was not
long.
1 year. It took months, but it was not a year.
Oh my God. And then he's still stuck at the next station. I like, you know why, Bill, I'm done with you. Whenever you can. But yeah, I'm glad to that you're still open to engage. That's the point I'm making. That I'm glad, and I'm also glad that Emmanuel, we just got connected, but he's really have shown how open he is to engage on this subject. So yeah, thank you, the both of you. um, so let's talk about Bill recently presented at Agile last convention, and he had so much great insight to share with us. I don't know what in Emmanuel, I will come to you. I have some questions for you. But Bill, when you're talking about um how do you say the name Windhoek Declaration or something? You emphasize the importance of a free and pluralistic press. How can this principle
Mhm.
be effectively applied to strengthen Liberia's democratic institutions? Like what steps should Liberia take to ensure its media environment aligns more closely with the standard you outlined in this Windhoek Declaration? I'm not too familiar with it, to be honest.
Well, let's be frank, Priscilla. Um, when I hear journalists of today, um, well, let me go back a couple of years. When I worked in Liberia for RX, and I heard some journalists talk about the lack of freedom. I'm like, really? And I've said to some of them, you should have been around during our time. Okay, I think the press in Liberia, for the most part, is free. There's press freedom in Liberia.
Okay.
People, for the most part, are free to write and say what they want to say.
Mm.
The talk show culture in Liberia. Liberia has a very robust talk show culture, radio talk
Okay.
show culture, and then we see it expanding, to the online space. For example, like this,
Mm.
we see it expanding. Uh, a lot of people say things on these different platforms that during our time we could not say.
Mm.
Okay. I don't know if you remember the night ELCM was shut down, Emmanuel. You know, I can never erase that night from my mind.
Yeah, I
Never,
remember.
because we were young. We were in our 20s.
Mm.
And I remember when we had walked in, and she sat at the typewriter and she wrote the statement because they said we should cease broadcasting the next day. So we had wrote a very hard hitting statement. And she asked, who wants to read it? And I volunteered. And that was the last uh, statement, the last thing EFCM broadcast before we walked out of the building that night. Okay. Today, and I'm not saying such things may not happen in Liberia. Um, they may. But for that to happen nowadays, I think the Liberian media is at a place where they can seek redress in the courts. Back then, if you went to court, um, to the court, probably nothing may happen. Okay, so there
Mm.
is freedom. There is
Okay.
freedom. There may be problems, but there is freedom. Here's the issue. I spoke during the convention of having a responsible media. I spoke of the pervasive poverty in the media. The
Mm.
pervasive poverty. Many of the journalists in the media are underpaid, severely underpaid. I know so
Mm.
many of them who are supposed to be making $75, $100, $150 a month, and you and I know that cannot even sustain the family. But
Yeah.
some of them will go for 3, 4, 5, 6 months even without even receiving that amount of money.
Mm.
Okay, without receiving that. So there's pervasive poverty. A consequence of that is um, the what a lot of people have described as ethical transgression we see in the media. You know,
Mm.
pay to play,
Yeah.
pay to play. That's a consequence of that. People go on assignments and they expect the brown envelope. They expect money. That undermines the integrity of the media.
Mm.
There are newsmakers in Liberia who believe that the media can be okay, and to some extent they are. I know someone who was acting station manager at a radio station, and I'm driving home that night listening to the radio, and the lead on the station was how this gas station was expanding or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, that's a Kato story. And this veteran of the media, what she told me the next day, she was upstairs in the office and she went downstairs and stood right to the studio door. And as soon as the newsreader got out, she said, where's the money? Where's
Oh
the
my.
money you were paid for that story?
Mm.
Okay. So these things are happening. These things are undermining the independence of the media, undermining the integrity of the. And we've been talking about this for years.
Mm.
We've been talking about it for years, and it continues. It persists. We've not found a solution to it.
Mm.
You know, how can we find a solution? We talk about, you know, media is a business. Okay, you need money to survive. You need money to pay people who work in the media.
Mm.
The advertising market in Liberia is so small. Okay, it's so small. So the question is, how do you sustain these so many newspapers, radio stations you have? with this very limited,
Small market.
yeah, this small market. How do you sustain that? So this is a huge challenge. And sometimes people ask me, how do we deal with it? How do we address this problem? Okay. When we think of those journalists who say that there are some media organizations, some media owners who make relatively good money, but they don't pay um, their employees well. People will say that. Okay. Can we address that? Yes, I think that is easier to address than the
Hmm.
bigger problem of, how do we deal with the issue of ethical transgression? How do we deal with the issue of coming up with business models, et cetera? Even if we come up with good business models, how do these different news organizations make money to take care of their employees? Okay. I remember when I was in Liberia, we the late Lawrence Randall, used to call him my little brother. We had several different sessions where we talk about, let's explore the possibility of mergers in the media,
Yeah.
because the multiplicity of newspapers, right, and it's not working.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not working. So when we talk about freedom, press freedom is there. Okay, the press freedom, freedom to publish and speak and write, and broadcast. You have that freedom, and to a large extent from government. But that freedom is being undermined because of the pervasive poverty in the media
Yeah.
and
Wow.
because of the ethical lapses that we witness every day. To some extent, these lapses are a consequence of the pervasive poverty. And I said to some extent. So, how do we address that? For me, is the bigger issue. And why haven't we addressed that up to this point? Why
Haven't
haven't we
we?
done something about it?
Mm-hmm. What haven't we? Oh, and then the issue of social media influence add to it as well. So yeah, Bill, I agree. That is something to process. I mean, I think we've had time to process it because yeah, you've been talking about this, and some of us who just came on also have started pointing out. We've been talking about this. Now we have the issue of social media influence. Social media is reshaping public opinion in Liberia, so you have to be dealing with how to strengthen traditional media to maintain integrity and credibility, and then you have social media influence. So amid the challenges posed, then there are issue of misinformation on social platforms. What balance should Liberia strike between leveraging social media for increased reach and preserving journalistic standard? Emmanuel, you want to take this one?
Thank you. Bill, thanks for expounding on the issues that we know exist in the Liberian media. You know, Priscilla, a week ago, I told you that no one has a right to be a journalist. No one has a right to be. It's a huge responsibility. And when you take on that responsibility, you have to be prepared for the environment. I remember when I was in mass communication school, a professor, Lamini Warite, he said to me, he said to a class one time, if you're looking to do very well in life, this is not the profession for you. You can go across the street to the Capitol building and you will do very well. Also, when you lose your credibility as a journalist, you're better off getting another profession because you will never regain it. That stuck with me. And then our own values as individuals play into who we are as journalists. I'm very fortunate that during my journalism years, we had very good mentors, including the Archbishop, may his soul rest in peace, Michael K. Francis, and others who very much um, gave us a roadmap on our personal values, values in society, and our responsibility, our ethics as journalists, and things like that. Now, I'll tell you that in the West, where we are, media houses are more worried about um, powerful individuals buying up media houses and having that kind of influence over the media.
Yep.
That's what they worry about. Back home, we worry about getting a meal to eat. We haven't graduated to the point where we're concerned about the cannibalization of the media by local interests. We're far away from that. Journalists are worried about getting a meal. And if you're concerned about getting a meal, you're not thinking about, what becomes of the media when individuals or institutions begin to cannibalize the media and buy up media houses so that they become powerful voices in the in the community, in the country. We still have a long way to go. There have been trainings provided by UNICEF and other organizations, international organizations, support and all of that. And when you look at the history of the Liberian media today, we really haven't made a lot of progress when it comes to the welfare of journalists and how we can go beyond where they are today. We lack the business skills when it comes to managing the media. Those skills, either they're not taught or because of prevailing social issues, economic issues, it's not possible to implement a good working condition for our journalists. And so the journalists are left to fend for themselves. And obviously it boils down then to pay for play. I'll be very honest that when journalists attempt to hold public officials responsible or accountable for pay to play, we should have an introspective view as to our own shortcomings. And this has been ongoing for some time. And we don't like to talk about it because that is the dark secret in the media. And the issue of pay to play has come about because of the welfare of journalists, poverty, and the lack of business training and ethics when it comes to managing the media. And Bill mentioned something very important here. Perhaps our journalists and our media houses should begin to think about, integrating and collaborating to become more viable. But when you have people thinking about themselves and not welfare, of journalists, and not even thinking beyond that, where the media is an institution of democracy, there's nobody who is going to agree to integrate and to collaborate to develop the media. When you talk about social media, that is one challenge that Liberian media has now come around to have some control over. Whether we like it or not, the media landscape is shifting. We're not prepared for the shift under our media feet. Social media has now become a huge challenge. Anyone who has a smartphone is now a citizen journalist. There is a line of dichotomy when it comes to people who own a cell phone and journalists who are trained in the ethics, the practice, and all of that. Because journalists who are trained, the real journalists, they give context. They pursue certain ethics. Someone with a phone, I'll give you a good example. There is a political person in Monrovia who holds press conferences on a regular basis. This person is known for vulgarity during live press conferences. And one of these media houses attended the press conference maybe a week and a half or two ago and allowed this political figure to hold a press conference using their platform. This political person didn't disappoint with the vulgarity and the profanity. How do you avoid that? Well, simply because you have a cell phone doesn't make automatically. Now, there are people who do very good work, citizen journalists who do very good work. But you have to understand, as a journalist, your calling has some responsibility. I also want to talk about the fact that
there is distinction.
Yeah, I also want to talk about the fact that, and Bill mentioned it, what we endured prior to the war in that country trying to keep the media alive cannot be compared to some of the challenges that they have today. We're not going to rehash what we went through, but it was quite a difficult period for the media. And that was why I wrote the book, The Media and Conflict in Liberia. So when we talk about the media today, there are challenges that we still need to overcome. And we as journalists who know better, who live in the Western world, who were, somehow we got prepared because of our experience in the Liberian media. You cannot work in the Liberian media, travel abroad, and be the same person. You have an advantage. You have an advantage. You have somewhat of an advantage because of, being battle hardened by the issues that you dealt with back home. Your writing, your preparation, your ethics, and all of that. If that doesn't change you as an international journalist, then everything that you're doing is for nothing. You're not helping with democracy. So we have to now continue to work and to continue to let our people know, our media people know that with the onset of social media, these new challenges and other challenges that we have that persist, we have a bigger job to do. And hopefully with ALJA and other, media solidarity organizations, we can begin to tackle this problem. But we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just read. Thank you, Emmanuel. I'll comment on your response. You and Bill, that's what I needed. Your thank you. Bill said we will pay him. Um, but yeah. Someone said John Fala say excellent on business skills. Media is business. As such, the skills and experience to manage a business are relevant. Yeah, the first comment was so lengthy, so I don't have the time. But he talking about the market. He was agreeing that the market is small and readership is readership is weak. So I wanted to say to this Bill Alex, he said I shouldn't give him the credit. I think Alex tried to address this when they introduced the training about media marketing, media management, marketing, and advertising, and that was what the fellowship was about. When I and a few other journalists were privileged to go to Rose University, in South Africa. When was that? I think 2012, right, Bill? To
Yeah,
do
2012.
yeah, for training in media marketing and work with community radio station managers and also CEOs or publishers in Monrovia to just work on how to create some marketing strategies to work together on that. But yeah, sometimes, like he mentioned about the CNN, there are some things that you introduce and you think it will stay, and then when you leave the scene, you don't know what it became of. Um, I know my one of my colleagues that also benefited from that training was trying Samoka. I don't know how far he is on that, and then I came over
Well,
here.
Samukai is, I would say, thriving. Okay,
Great,
Samukai is media development, should I say, executive or leader with Internews in Monrovia.
yeah,
So,
I saw
I
that.
mean, he's, yeah.
Yeah, I saw him doing that, and I thought that was great. Yeah, I agree with you. He is thriving as a media development executive. Talking so when Emmanuel, when you mentioned about having had a kind of experience that you had in Liberia and then come overseas and then you get the exposure, I don't see how you're supposed to stay I mean the same. I don't see how you shouldn't have an impact or make the difference. I remember being in class at the ASU when I came on a home for fellowship and being afraid to speak up. I just used to do a lot of writing, and then I was so conscious of sounding different because everybody would turn if I make input. And then one time, my instructor came to me, the lecturer. There were two of them, and they at different times they called me and they say, "Your writing is so strong, you do great. how you don't share and teach people in here. And I just a Liberian journalist, and they were like, you are an international journalist. And then the light bulb went over like international. And then the other professor said, yeah, as long as you cross overseas, you left your country and came over here, you're an international journalist. And you have so much experience, I can see from your writing. So yeah, so after you sat in some spaces, I don't see how you can say you can make impact. I wanted to agree with that point you raised.
You know,
Already.
Priscilla, real quick, thank you for that. Real quick, Liberian journalists are just as smart and resourceful and professional, just like any world journalist.
Mhm.
We've proven that from what we do here. Bill left Liberia as a refugee, worked at CNN, worked as a professor at a local university in Georgia,
Mhm.
teaching American students about journalism,
Mhm.
now works for Al Jazeera. This is someone from Liberia.
Mhm.
So, what excuse do we have when we travel not, you know, working professional? We're just as smart and resourceful, and sometimes even better than people who, have a right to journalism in the West. We're just as smart and resourceful, and now we're giving back to the country from which we came. That is very important. And this is why we support local journalism. It's not just about writing a story. We follow developments back home. We see the type of writings. As radio personnel, people who work in radio, we listen to the radio differently when we monitor situations back home. Not
Mhm.
like the ordinary person. There are things we look for. The professionalism that we look for. There's so much gaps in journalism back home, and a lot of people have passion for the profession, but they're not prepared, and not of their own, not that they don't want to be prepared, but the opportunities and the means of getting prepared are so just limited, and they don't have the mentors and the guidance there to help them do that. So hopefully, with what we're discussing, the support of Alja and other organizations, we can begin to innovate, to help those who would like to pursue in this profession.
Yeah, that's a segue to my next question.
Let me,
How
can
do
I
you
add something, Priscilla?
go ahead?
As Liberians, we have a tendency to put ourselves down. We do. A lot of times when I was in Liberia, and sometimes even when I'm listening now, I hear people who they're so quick to compare certain developments or things in Liberia with what's happening in other countries, and they would make these comparisons by saying or implying that other countries are better than we are. You know, they're so quick to do that. We have this tendency to think of ourselves as less than the next person from another country, et cetera, et cetera. We put ourselves down. Um, Many years ago, when I applied to the Voice of America and I took the test and have my name on the list. So I'm speaking to a veteran journalist from Liberia many, many years ago. And I said, I don't know why the VOA hasn't called me. And he said, maybe because you're not qualified. And I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten that. And I'm like, what did he mean by that? You know, what did he mean by that? I've always felt like like Emmanuel said, I always felt that I was as good as any other journalist, or perhaps even better. Okay, I remember during my initial years in the U.S. I think I was in grad school or about to. No, I was not in grad school. I was thinking about going to grad school, and we were having a meeting at my house. My good friend, Dubayan, Dr. Yang, was getting married, and we're having a wedding meeting at my apartment. And talking from one thing to another, I mentioned that I was going to go to school. I was going to do graduate studies in journalism. And people in the room, why are you wasting your time? Nobody's going to hire you in this place. What kind of journalism? Broadcasting. Nobody's going to hire you. Nobody's going to hire you. Why were they saying that? Because in the eyes of Liberians, we are less than
Mm-hmm.
others. We are less than who we are supposed to be.
Hmm.
And even right now, when I try to mentor young people, mostly journalists, I always tell them, aim big, aspire to be. I remember the days of listening to the Hilton File, etc. And I told myself, oh my God, I want to be a Hilton File. I want to do that. I was in a conversation with someone recently. I was like, wow. I said, I look back and I can say, well, thank God. Because I said, I wanted to be a Hilton File. I want to be an international journalist. And despite what people said, you're going to waste your time if you go to, school of journalism, if you do broadcast journalism. It's not just Liberians. When I entered American University, there was this Saturday, we sitting around and talking. There was this young, I'm not going to call her name because we're friends today. She's a big time journalist in the U.S., Black American. And we're talking and, and she's like, you don't broadcast? I say, yes, I'm talking from one thing to another. And I've forgotten what she said exactly, but what she was saying to me was I was wasting my time. I wasted like I said, we're still friends. She has apologized to me so many times since then. So many times. Okay. But all of those things inspired me. And I said, I came to this country. Yes, I work in department store, clean people bathroom and all those things. But I said I wanted to be an international journalist. And even when people told me it was not going to work for me, I didn't pay attention to them.
Hmm.
So we have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in ourselves. And I think too many times we don't. We don't. And it's a problem. And it's not just journalism. Look around and see all the Liberian professionals globally because they believe in themselves. And that's what I'm saying to all of us as Liberians, especially young Liberian journalists, aspire to be more than you are.
Yeah. I agreed, Bill. I think we internalize that sometimes what our people who are close to us tell us. I know of people I can remember now who kept telling me, yeah, when I do this story in the past, some guy will be like, how you can wear like man, that kind of sexy thing. Yeah, you can wear me. I didn't even believe that you the one I stand over you yet to read the story. I didn't even believe you the one read the story. And then it'll be, yeah, okay, maybe you can write, but you can articulate well. And I, kind of internalize that. And it always have to be people from outside to say, look, you're better than you think you are. Talking about Rose University, we there were two of us that went that year, Elisa Dan and I, and we did a presentation on it. And we left campus, and just the following week and the week after in a department, okay, say Liberian team presentation was so great. We were not even, we were not even sure. Nobody wanted to. She wanted me to do it. No, I wanted her to do it. I just put something together, and it was just the Liberian team. The Liberian team was so amazing. Your presentation was so great. The next thing, our professor was behind me to just put something together to leave with them to inform a book he was writing. And and over here, the same thing. I have to keep being reminded by people from outside, so from within, say, from without, and say, hey, you better than you think you are. The Black Journalists Association, the program they had before Donald Trump descended on them. One of my mentors here, we met at ASU. She's a lecturer there and talked to me and would tell everybody about me to my embarrassment. So they were honoring her. She was one of the honoring in Chicago. But she had to tell everyone there is this international journalist, media development specialist, just like our global coordinator here will tell everyone, you are a media development specialist. I said, what they making me putting specialists on this thing? I'm just treating journalists, you know. Yeah, but then she told everyone, so now they had to give me 30 minutes, 20 minutes or 15 minutes to do some presentation. And I was shaking. But by the time I got to that program, everyone knew my name because she told them I'm this Liberian journalist, I'm international and this, and you know. So sometimes it's just these people. Just yesterday, she was connecting someone and then she was telling them she added, she's just been elected as vice president of the Liberian Association of like journalists in the Americas. I say, oh my
Yeah.
God.
You know, Priscilla, from what you're saying, let me just give you an example why we international journalists who travel from Liberia, who have settled here and continue to work professionally, why we sometimes put ourselves down. Good example, Bill and I worked in radio. We when we worked in radio, we work in news, hard news. We also had programs that we produced. What we did back home in Liberia at the ELCM radio, we went out, attended press conferences, recorded the press conference, did interview, got back to the studio, wrote a story for the 650 News, edited stories, did scripts for programs. I mean, the whole 9 yards we did. Simply because they will not hire somebody just to simply sit behind the glass and press the button to put the microphone on. You had to do all of that and have the program ready to go on air. Here, when I visited a radio station here and I told them my experience, they're like, oh, no. You only get the script and you read. You don't do editing. You don't write the script, nothing. Just read what's in front of you. I was like, what? What you guys do here? Where I come from, I do all of this. So that tells you that we didn't have those facilities in Liberia, and it prepared us for excelling when we travel. And it goes for other, others who are in other professions. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we internalized that, putting ourselves down. We did. Somebody say, yeah, Marjorie says, I don't know what I said her name right. She said, you mean some Liberians, those you have encountered. We Liberians are capable of so much. I think we stop believing in ourselves because of the war. Sometimes I think that's the reason. What do you think?
Well, maybe, probably, but I don't know. I think maybe the war has something to do with it. But I think we have to accept that this is a problem. You were here on the airwaves in Liberia. You know, you will in even in our interaction at times with other people here, you hear it, you see it. We always believe that the next country is better than we are. We always believe that the next individual is better than we are. And here's the thing. I don't want people to think that I'm saying or we're saying here that every Liberian is that way. But that is very pervasive. It
Mm,
is very pervasive.
mm,
Sometimes we believe that because we've left Liberia and we've come here, we have to reshape our focus and become something else.
mm.
And become something else. And I refuse to become something else. I refuse to become someone else.
Mm.
My dream and I used to tell my students this all the time. Sometimes they'll be like, how did you become a journalist? And I say, I don't know how many, maybe Priscilla's too young. Abalo, I don't think you're too young to remember Ivan Fisk. 8 o'clock news. And I watch Ivan Fisk every Friday evening before Ghost Story. My mother didn't have a television, so we went downstairs in the other apartment to the neighbor's apartment. And Ivan Fisk will end the news. This has been Ivan Fisk. Thanks for watching. And I'm glad that we could get together. And I'll be like, oh my God, I'm going to be like that man someday. That he inspired me. So from the first grade, I wanted to be a journalist. Stevie Thomas, the principal of Cathedral High School, said to me, the late Stevie Thomas, he said, I don't see you becoming anything else. If you become anything else, I'll be surprised. I remember that. I had a young student, smart, brilliant. I almost called her name, but maybe she won't like that. Smart, brilliant, who played around, would not come to class regularly. And I called her into my office one day and I closed the door and said, I'm going to be your father today. So you're one of the most brilliant persons. I said, you know what? I don't see any other profession for you but journalism. I said, you're so good at it. And I told her what my high school principal said to me. Yes, the first time after a while, she became better, okay? And then she slacked again. So we were launching a new program. And I suggested to them, let's get the president of the university to be on the first edition. So Kathy Cox agreed. And I said, people, I don't want anyone else doing this interview but Belloh. Oh God, I called her name. Well, I said, I don't want anyone doing it but Belloh. So Belloh did and I watched her and I was like, oh my God, this young woman is so good. And afterwards, I walked over to the President Cox. I shook her hand and I said, what do you think of Belloh? And she said, oh my gosh, she's good. And I said, I told her what my high school principal told me, that he didn't see me as anything else but a journalist. And I said, I'm saying the same thing to her.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ivan Fisk inspired me, and I came here and said, yeah, I may clean somebody's, no, we can't say those kind of words here, right? I may clean somebody's toilet, okay? I may, lift furniture, etc. I said, but that's on my way to being what I want to be.
To be. Ooh.
And I was determined I was not going to change my mind. Nothing was, come on, I watched Ivan Fisk for years, and I was like, I would be disappointed that man in his grave if I became anything else. So my thing is, at times you have to adapt and adjust.
Yeah.
But don't think that because I'm in America, I'm in a different country, so I cannot be who I aspire to be. Yes.
Yeah. Priscilla, what Bill is just explaining, he eloquently discussed the question that you raised. Did the war impact our self-actualization and all of that? He handled that quite well. Look, there were Liberian journalists in the private media, in the national media, government media. Even most of us learn, by listening to the BBC and foreign stations. All right. He talked about Ivan Fisk. You talk about Tommy Raines. You talk about Moses Washington. All of these people who, Charlotte May Phelps, who was a specialist in speech pathology. You listen to, this was somebody who was the station manager at EOCM. And when you listen to her, you could hear the stereo in her voice, not the equipment, not the radio, in her voice. This lady, there was, excellence in journalism, or you didn't make the cut. Bishop Francis, he wasn't a journalist. He was, more of the church. But these people, they demanded so much of us that we had to decide whether we will measure up to the standard that is set for us. And these journalists, like Bill mentioned, Ivan Fisk, Tommy Raines, and these other people, these are Liberians that we learn from. These are Liberians that we learn from. We live these people now in our own lives. We live these people. Everything that we do now, we model those individuals. So those great journalists. They were
Mm.
great journalists, and I pay tribute to those people who on the radio, because we were radio personnel, and then we got into writing, for papers and all of that. But our
Mm.
first love was radio. And when we listened to the radio, we knew what was good. We knew what we wanted to model, and we pursued that. And I
Mm.
also wanted to directly respond to the question you asked: did the war impact or made us, not
Interesting.
because something? I'll say this, and this is no hit on anyone. As an individual, the values that we bring, personal values that we bring to the profession, they matter a whole lot. They matter a whole lot. If you're a corrupt individual, the journalism is only a stepping stone to get your whatever you need to get. You're only using the profession. What values do you bring? Are you an ethical person in the first place? We
Mm.
complain about government officials back home in Liberia and all of that. People don't get corrupt when they join government. They're corrupt before they join government.
Mm.
Same thing with the profession. You got to be somebody who has some issues. And if you come into the profession, you're only using the profession as a stepping stone and you're
Yeah.
not. So we need to consider the values that we bring as journalists, to the profession. Just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I agree. Personal value matters. I think Bill didn't get a background, but I think he heard about me one or two times when we started doing training. And if a training wasn't done, I returned the money to RX. If we just didn't find, there was instances that we went to a place and they were in motel. So the team say, well, we can just I personally say oh, it's going to reflect on out of us. I'm me. I don't care, but I mean, but sometimes when those reports get back, it's framed differently, and I know I got from one of his team members. Oh yeah, they say you're difficult to, you are not being a team. No, you are not being a team player, and I didn't want to report anyone, so I just said, okay, whatever you heard. But yeah, I have my own personal values that guide the way I go about doing my work or whatever it is. Uh, but yeah, so you know what? I think you have already said stuff that I was going to ask about. Say what advice you got for young journalists? Bill, all of you have talked about it. So um as we wrap, Emmanuel, you will have to come back so we can talk about your book. Please, I don't want for Bill to charge me. I don't know how much he's earning at Al Jazeera. I can afford that. Um, 2 hours for him. So let's just wrap. As someone deeply involved in global media, what advice would you give? Okay, you already covered it. Let's just send us home. Looking forward to the future, how optimistic are you about the media's role in fostering um, accountability, especially when it comes to the war crime? This is the newest, biggest assignment ahead of Liberian media. Any word of advice as we wind
Anyway,
down?
before I say get to that, I just want to congratulate Abalo on the publication of your latest book. Congratulations. Um,
Author of
Priscilla, yeah. Let me say this. We talked about the challenges facing the Liberian media. We've talked about the ethical lapses, but it's safe to say that there are some journalists and some media organizations that are thriving, that are doing very well in the midst of the challenges.
Yeah, I agree.
In the midst of the challenges, and I could point to several of them, but like we always say, don't name names, because if you leave some out, you don't know what they may cause. So I just want to emphasize that there are people back home in the midst of the problems,
Mhm.
in the midst of the limitations and the
Mhm.
struggles, they're
Yeah.
doing well,
Yeah.
doing to a large extent, some of what they should be doing.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, like I mentioned in my presentation, I'm not sure that many of the young journalists who are struggling, and I think about them may have said some version of that today. Uh, those people go out every day, and the bottom line is, how do I feed my family?
Yeah,
How do I pay
survive.
my way to get to work? I tell you, many years ago, just something anecdotal. I got written up because I didn't go to ELCN to open the station. I don't know if Abalo remember that, but he and I stood on University of Liberia's campus, and I was talking to him about it. I didn't cry, but I almost did. I almost did. I got written up. Do you know why I didn't go? Why didn't John have his breakfast? Because he had no breakfast to have. I had no money to get to work.
Station together. No.
And at that time, I think we were getting what, $20 or $40 per month. So I had no money to get to work. And rather than, understanding that, I got this long letter
Yeah.
and I was so hurt. Okay. Why do I mention that? I mention that to say that when a lot of times I understand what some of these young people go through. Okay. But um at the end of the day, they're not focused on holding people accountable. They focus on what can I get to survive today? What can I get to buy the milk for my baby? What can I get to feed my children or to pay my rent? To pay my rent. There was a time I made $20 a month. My rent was $30. So I was already in the hole by $10.
Hmm.
You know? So some people are not thinking of this. But it is the media's responsibility to hold government accountable, to hold government to its word. It is the
Hmm.
media responsibility to ensure that the promises that have been made to bring to justice those people accused of war crimes, that those promises are upheld. It is the
Hmm.
media's responsibility that those who made those promises and are today our leaders, they must be held accountable. They must be held accountable. And is the media doing its job? To some extent, some entities are doing the jobs. Apart from the fact that people are in survival mode, there are some people who do not understand the complexity of the whole thing. How do we help them understand? When I was about to graduate from the University of Liberia, Mr. Best said to me he wanted me to be, I think, education editor or something. He gave me an assignment. I'm about to graduate from University of Liberia Mass Comm School. This is not to put the Mass Comm department down because I learned a lot from that department. But I tell you the
Hmm.
fact, you are a sum total of what you know. I had no idea how to take the first step to do what Mr. Best asked me to do.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, he was upset with me, but he understood. So people need the acquired skills. They need to learn these things.
Hmm.
Okay? We have a responsibility. And I must be frank, despite the limitations, to some extent, the people in Liberia, some journalists in Liberia are living up to those expectations or trying to live up. But there are others who want to and they don't know how to. Who want to, they don't have the means. Who
Hmm.
want to, but hey, can I think about that when I have to think on how to pay? I tell my kids a joke at times. I say I used to stand at the window of ELC and look outside and be so angry. Why is it so hot out there? You know why I was angry? Because I didn't have a penny in my pocket to buy food to eat. So can you imagine? How can you expect people to think about these things when they're in survival mode? We've been there. I've lived that. I understand that. And that is
Mm-hmm.
why, for me, this is a big issue.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill. Thank you. Emmanuel, do you have?
Priscilla, thank you. And I especially am very proud of how far you've come and
Thank you.
how much luminance you're bringing to the issue of the media in Liberia. Others have tried to put this on the forefront, and we thank all of you who are working selflessly to bring the issue of the media, the challenges, and look, we've made progress in Liberia. It's been a difficult, painful progress, but we've made progress. Bill did mention that the ingredients for mostly free and fair for freedom of speech as guaranteed by the Constitution. Those things are now in place and people are enjoying it. Sometimes they enjoy it too much without realizing the responsibility that comes with freedom of speech and all of that. So we've made progress. We will continue to slowly but surely make progress on improving the media landscape in Liberia. Making people to understand that being a journalist is a huge responsibility. We'll continue to do that. Um, my advice to young people who want to enter into this profession is that um, you need to prepare yourself. Prepare yourself, associate with resources that will make you a better journalist. Know your limitations. Not everybody is going to be good on TV. Not everybody will be good on radio. Perhaps you're good at writing. Perhaps you're good as an editor. Most editors hardly, show up on TV or on radio, but they do a very good job as editors. I'll give you a good example. The late Rufus Dapo, who we all try, respect a whole lot, and he will forever remain someone of high repute. You think Mr. Dapo would have been, a good TV personality, but he was a powerful editor and writer. So know your limitations and do your best to get control of the language in which you go into practice. The language, the Queen's language, English, for that matter, has opened doors here in the US. I'm grateful that we spent time trying to get a handle around the language. Work on resources that will improve you. Visit the US Embassy, anything that has to give you an experience with the outside world. Get close to those things. Prepare yourself, learn. If you have the ability, when you're seeking opportunities, look for individuals who can introduce you to opportunities. Be ethical. Don't lose your respect in the process. And, like Mr. Best and others who continue to thrive, they've done a lot for the media in Liberia. And I'm so thankful that the Daily Observer, Mr. Best, and the rest of them, the Inquirer, is still thriving, and they are good resources. If you want to learn, these are kinds of people you need to talk to, and they will tell you how they made it. There are others you can talk to, and don't forget, you never know when you will travel, and these skills will feed you, feed your family. You may not work in this profession when you travel abroad because we have the disadvantage of, you know what, you have an African accent, you can't work on radio. It doesn't mean you can't write. You can do other things. The world is opening now. There are other international media organizations you can work with and make an impact. Komla Dumor at the BBC, the late Komla Dumor, the first presenter, of an African program. Hilton Fire, all of these guys, where were they from? West Africa. They still have people from the Sudan. making history on the BBC and other places. Those are the things you need to begin to put your hands around and encourage so that you have that exposure and you're not like everyone else who follows they say. If you want to be a journalist, you got to make some sacrifices. And we know it's not easy. There are not opportunities, but make the sacrifice. Like Bill said, there were days when, as journalists, people, have so much respect and all of that. But personally, we had some financial challenges that we're dealing with. People didn't know, you know. So I just wanted to end there. Thank you.
Yeah. Woo, that's so much, so much, so much wisdom. And I really do agree with all of the things you said. Bill, like you mentioned, at least you used to get $20 when I was considered trainee. I didn't get a dime for transportation or go to Veritas. Even to get batteries, I used to have to rely on a friend at Star Radio, or to get cassette because they used to have extra, And so when I'm going out on the field with her, until when I couldn't find my way through, when I started writing, I said, okay, maybe this thing is not working. Started writing, but then Stephen Thomas, you know, the Papa used to say they just didn't want to fire me. I mean, they just didn't want to say they fired me from the Cali system, so they just took from Cathedral. He was at Veritas, but yeah, he was one of the person that stopped at the first radio station when I left Veritas to say, "I am so proud of you. I'm glad that you didn't stop at Veritas just because you didn't get on the radio. You do good writing, and I know you reach far. Just focus on improving on that." So yeah, he told me that he actually stopped on his way going home one day. Uh, um, and to add to on Emmanuel, says self educate. All of you say the same thing. Bill say I used to listen to someone and say I want to be like him. I don't remember the name again, but I don't think this person. He said I want to be like him. So everything you're
Ivan
not
Fitz. Ivan
exactly
Fitz.
everything you're
EOBC
not
radio. Yeah.
Yeah, everything you're not going to learn it in school. School is good. He said, I went to the MASCOM, but when Kenny Best asked me to do something, I didn't even know where to start from. So everything you're not going to learn it in a classroom. And I didn't realize this. I'm a avid reader, very ferocious reader. I can't get tired of buying books. And I did not realize this until I got offended with this colleague who was working at LMC. She came from out of the country, trying to find a school for her child, was thinking about sending for her child from the UK, but did not want to send her child to a school in Liberia. And then I got offended and I was like, because we're friends. So what you think? You think Liberian schools are not good? You think your child is so good for Liberian school? And I was upset with her. I wouldn't listen to her. So Lamin Bago called me on his side and said, Priscilla, I said, no, I'm a product of Liberian school system. And my son is going to, and he said, Ma, you self-educated or you educate yourself so much. Do you think your output, you think that just strictly from Liberian school system? So if she doesn't, yeah, give her that chance if she does not want to. And I didn't understand what you mean by you self-educated. But over time, I will get appointed out because I do a lot of, you know, self-development. So read, invest in yourself, professionally and as an individual. So I just wanted to add that when Emmanuel, when you said build yourself, because you never know where opportunity is going to place you in front of other people. Um, but yeah, thank you for what you have built and what you're continuing to build. That we standing on your shoulders today. Uh, so, read and viewers, I cannot read all of your comments. We don't have the time. It was supposed to be for an hour and a half because just because there are two of them, one person is 1 hour. So let's draw the curtains down here. We will have Emmanuel back. Um, but thanks to all of you for joining us today. Remember, on a new day, we say change begins with a conversation. So join us next time at a new day conversations as we continue to explore these kind of ideas that will make us better as people. Let's make every day a new day for progress. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. It's a new day, everyone. It's a brand new day. Thank you to both of you for joining us.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Thank you, Priscilla. Good luck.
Okay,
Take
goodbye.
care, Emmanuel.
Yeah. Bill,
Bill just carry
you
me.
in Doha? You said you in Doha? Bill?
Yeah, I'm in Doha.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm. I'll be
What
in the
time?
States next month.
Okay.
I know it's almost
Yeah.
10 p.m. now, right?
It's almost 10 p.m., but I'm not working tomorrow, so my body is still on American time. So I'm going to be up reading and doing other things until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I
Emma-
don't know why. I've been here, what, 3 months now? And my body can't get adjusted.
Yeah.
So
You say you'll
anyway,
be this next month, right?
yeah, I'm getting there by the 11th. My son is having his third baby, and so they're having the shower on the 16th. So I'm excited about that. I'm a
Yeah.
Well,
grandfather, man,
congratulations to the family. Yeah,
right?
congratulations.
Oh,
I'm a grandfather. I got two girls. The third one's coming. Yep.
all right now. Yeah, take care. Bye bye.
Okay then.
We are Labira. Labira is our home. Labira people. Either you raise it or we want. Labira. Either you raise it or we want. Labira, Labira.